Thank you for joining today's webinar on the new ITinvolve Spring 14 release. My name is Matt Selheimer. I'm the VP of Marketing for ITinvolve, and with me today is Mike Michelzik, our Senior Director of Product Management. Thanks for joining us today. What we want to share with you today is information about the new capabilities in the ITinvolve Spring 14 release. As a quick refresher for those that are already familiar with ITinvolve, or perhaps for those who may not be, ITinvolve represents the industry's first IT agility application. This is a product that helps teams come together, whether we're talking about business stakeholders, operations personnel, development, QA teams, service support teams. We help those teams come and work together to help the IT organization be more agile and help the business respond faster to market opportunities and competitive threats. The key capabilities of ITinvolve are the ability to analyze risk and understand dependencies, to bring scattered IT data together in one place, and capture undocumented critical expert tribal knowledge easily. Our product is built with social collaboration at its foundation, enabling a continuous review of information so that teams have a trusted, complete, and accurate foundation for decision making. We also help ensure stability and deployment success by helping you visualize, identify, and correct drift across your application environments. And finally, we help you improve project delivery and quality by facilitating your transformation to DevOps and improving collaboration across teams and enhancing operations across the entire end-to-end development lifecycle. What we find as we engage with our clients and prospective customers is that IT is literally drowning in lots and lots of data and processes and tools. And despite all of these investments, it's very difficult for IT teams to be able to find and leverage this information. You might have valuable information in your CMDB. You might have critical information about policies on a SharePoint site, FAQs and other lessons learned in a knowledge base, asset repositories, monitoring feeds, requirements planning tools, etc. The ability to leverage this information at the point of need when making a decision is critical, but yet is extremely difficult using traditional approaches. Our core offering solves this challenge by helping you centralize and visualize all of your IT knowledge, including both your systems-based knowledge and your tribal information. We ensure this information is validated and accurate through a continuous peer review process that's enabled by social collaboration. We help you visualize and model your dependencies and relationships, not just configuration data, but policies, projects, requirements, and many other types of important IT information. The ITinvolve offering includes an analysis engine that helps you to understand upstream and downstream risks from multiple different perspectives so that you can make accurate and quick decisions. And we enable collaboration among experts to help teams come together in order to make better decisions and to plan scenarios leveraging all of the valuable information that's in ITinvolve. In a moment, we're going to show you a demonstration of new capabilities in Spring 14. Just a quick orientation on ITinvolve. Currently, what we're looking at in this screenshot here is an example of an application and the wealth of knowledge that ITinvolve has been able to assemble around this application. This data, this knowledge may exist in many different systems. It might be in your CMDB, it might be in your SharePoint site, it might be inside of ITinvolve, might be on a file system. The point is ITinvolve helps you to centralize this information, to be able to bring it together and visualize it in one place. Next, what we do is we help you to take these objects, in this case the application object, and to be able to develop perspectives that bring together multiple objects. ITinvolve enables a process of continuous peer review that also is leveraged to crowdsource information. For example, you may have information that only your experts in your organization know that doesn't actually reside in the system anywhere. ITinvolve helps you to be able to capture that tribal information very easily. Just like you might type a Twitter message of 140 characters, you can quickly and easily capture tribal information in ITinvolve. No longer do you have to deal with the long, lengthy, tedious knowledge article writing. You can capture critical information in little bits at a time such that you're able to build up a complete and accurate understanding of not only your systems-based information, but also your tribal information. With this foundation, once you have your knowledge defined and your relationships and dependencies defined in ITinvolve, you can do some extremely interesting things in terms of analysis and being able to understanding upstream and downstream impacts, to be able to visually assess risk, to proactively identify the right stakeholders. In fact, ITinvolve does that for you. Because we know who's following what objects in the systems, when it comes to planning a scenario, ITinvolve knows exactly all the experts who need to be engaged. So that was a quick tour of the core ITinvolve offering. Now today, we're going to spend some time talking about our new offerings introduced with Spring 14, ITinvolve Agility Manager, and later ITinvolve Drift Manager. As I said earlier, ITinvolve Agility Manager helps to facilitate DevOps. It improves the collaboration and enhances operations across your development and project life cycles, engaging all relevant business, development, service delivery, operations, and support team members in project planning, as well as the execution and deployment of new application releases. The net benefit of ITinvolve Agility Manager is that you will have faster project delivery times, and you will also have better release quality, with releases being delivered far more often in line with the expectations that the business has. A typical scenario that we run into when we're out engaging with our clients and prospective clients is what's described here in terms of the disconnected DevOps tool chain. If you think about all the various different teams and tools that need to come together to typically handle a new application release, from the initial business goals and requirements all the way through to deployment and operations, in a typical organization, you're going to have an extremely disconnected tool chain, where people are the glue that are tying this together. And despite our best efforts, we know that information gets lost and information can get distorted across these many handoffs. And unfortunately, all too often, this means that we end up with projects that are delivered later than expected, with less functionality than expected, and with less reliability and performance than expected. ITinvolve solves this challenge by aligning the DevOps toolchain. We will sit alongside of your existing investments, whether those might be investments in project management tools or requirements planning tools or automation solutions or your service desk, your change management tool. ITinvolve complements those existing investments and helps you to be able to orchestrate the development lifecycle and aligning your DevOps toolchain. This results in projects that are delivered when they're expected more often than not, with the functionality that's expected and with the reliability and performance that's expected. Additionally, ITinvolve's Agility Manager can also provide a number of the capabilities that are described in the colored cylinders down here. For example, ITinvolve can also provide goals and requirements management, project and task management, feature management and bug tracking, configuration management, as well as IT service management capabilities. So if you have gaps in any of these areas of the DevOps toolchain, or if you're not satisfied with your current vendor in that particular area, not only can ITinvolve come alongside and align your DevOps toolchain, but we can provide many of these individual capabilities as well. With ITinvolve Agility Manager, we introduce a number of new objects that help you to manage and orchestrate the development lifecycle. These include objects for goals, projects, releases, initiatives, requirements, stories, and tasks. We also have an initiatives channel that helps you to manage your agile scrums and daily stand-up meetings, assigning actions to project team members. And we've added enhanced visualizations, Kanban dashboarding capability, so you can see where work is in process, as well as Gantt charting functionality. Not to mention the fact that we can also work with those existing investments you already have, as I mentioned on the previous slide. So if you've already got a project management tool with Gantt charting functionality and you've already built out your project plan in that Gantt chart, no problem. ITinvolve can federate that information or import that information. You don't have to rekey that information in ITinvolve. Finally, to summarize the benefits of ITinvolve Agility Manager, ITinvolve Agility Manager helps to eliminate those communication handoff gaps and the risk of information loss and distortion that's so common in the DevOps tool chain today. It helps you to align your business goals, your requirements, your projects, and your releases so that teams know what they're working on and how that work ties back to the business and what's important to the business. Because of the collaboration capabilities in ITinvolve, as requirements change, as projects change, as milestones change, the people who are following those objects are automatically kept up to date on those changes. So no longer are they out of the loop or in the dark about a requirement that may have changed and have to scramble to accommodate that requirement at a late date. ITinvolve helps you to manage your development iterations, helping you to assign and track tasks and facilitating those cross-team collaborations and daily stand-ups. It gives full transparency into the status of projects and releases so that your management and business stakeholders have a whole new level of visibility and understanding exactly where project work is at the current moment, and can also provide feedback. For example, if a requirement looks like it's not going to be delivered until a future release, a business stakeholder can provide feedback on what the impact of that could mean to the business, which might cause the development team to reconsider including that requirement in an earlier release. And finally, because ITinvolve Agility Manager is built on the core foundation of ITinvolve and all the relationships and dependency information that it contains, ITinvolve Agility Manager also helps you to keep your environments in sync between your pre-production systems and your production systems. That's a quick overview of ITinvolve Agility Manager. Now I'm going to hand it over to Mike Michalczyk, our Senior Director of Product Management, who's going to provide us with a demonstration of this new offering. Over to you, Mike.
Thank you, Matt. And in the next couple of minutes, we would like to, as Matt said, take you through some of these features in a live demonstration so you can get a sense of how they come together and provide the values and the benefits that Matt spoke about just a moment ago. So what we're looking at is the ITinvolve application. And where we are starting is something that we call a perspective. And a perspective is a grouping of objects and relationships and presented in a way that is meaningful to the stakeholder or to the creator, and being able to show information from the library of objects and relationships that allow them to act more efficiently and effectively. What we're looking at right now are the goals, requirements, initiative, and project objects. So beginning from the top, let's look at it from this point of view. We have our company here who has these goals. They always want to be competitive. They need to know what to build, and they need to make sure that they have the right products in their portfolio. Well, as a result of always wanting to of these having these goals, the business has aligned a set of requirements to those. That's the idea of being able to enable the customer to purchase products online, their ability to accept custom orders for their products online, which tie back to and help them achieve the goal of always being competitive. Whereas also here they have requirements of soliciting customer input and being able to enable customers to collaborate about new products and services they would like to see the company uh, produce. And these in turn help achieve the goals of knowing what to build and making sure that they always have the right products in their portfolio for their customers. Now we get to the issue of where the company has to be able to deliver on these requirements. So what do they do? Well, they kick off a new initiative, and this initiative is called the Online Customer Experience. And for them, the online customer experience is broken into three projects. They have the Phoenix project that is the build out for the operations side. They have Phoenix project, the development side, and they have Phoenix project, the business, which is looking at all the marketing, go to markets, sales, branding, all those things you would expect the business to have to come to grips with, sales rollout, and the like. All three of these projects work in concert to deliver on the initiative, which in turn deliver on the requirements that help achieve the company goals. So in one view, we have a way to communicate things that traditionally are lost between the different systems in the DevOps tool chain that Matt alluded to previously. We can take this one step further here in this area by also being able to collaborate on these areas. Let me also take just a second and point out that as Matt has already illustrated and or already said in the previous section, that if you already have tools that are doing requirements gathering, if you have tools that are doing that have projects and business goals, that information can be federated or brought into ITinvolve so that it is communicating it at a globally interesting level, while the details behind it are being kept in the tool that is appropriate for that stake owner, or that tool, or for that consumer that gives them the most. So if you've got groups that say we really like our tool and we don't want to lose our tool, that's fine. They don't have to. We'll integrate with it. And there's a number of ways, from APIs to data management, that we have as a way of integrating, and we can. And you're welcome to ask questions and let us know in that later on if you have any questions about how we integrate with various tools. Now what I'd like to do is show you one other element that's extremely important. That's the collaboration around these areas. Traditionally, we have fragmented knowledge, fragmented collaboration. It happens in email. It happens in instant messaging. It happens in the hallway. So what we're looking at here is where our project manager, Kirsten, said, you know what? I've taken the time to put together and map those requirements that we talked about a moment ago to our business goals. I think these are right. Would you please look and see? And here we can see where the business owners, Maggie and Sarah, have also chimed in and said, well, yes, these are right. These are what we're expecting. And we can even see where Steve has also chimed in as well. And he noticed that not all the company goals are in the system and wanted to know more about if they were going to be added in. So here, this form of collaboration can easily take place. And now people can go back and look and see the history of it and say, oh, okay, I see how we got to this decision, or I see how these were added in or subtracted out. And we'll see other examples of this throughout our demonstration here in a moment. Next, the last area I want to show you in this area is around self-documentation. One of the worst problems we have in DevOps is the idea of being able to understand, know what we don't know. And what the ITinvolve application enables enables the organization to do is, when changes are made to these views, people who are following them are proactively notified when these changes occur, and therefore they can see something they'll go that may spark a discussion that may otherwise have gone unnoticed had it just been communicated in an email or instant message. Next, what I'd like to do is I'd like to transition to the initiative. We talked about it just briefly a moment ago, but I'd like to show you a couple of key features and areas around the initiative and show you how ITinvolve really brings home some of the areas of management that make this a very compelling offer. An initiative, as we said, is that highest level order of something that we're going to do in the organization to achieve a set of goals and to deliver on a set of requirements. An initiative can be broken down into projects. It can be broken down into simple releases. So an initiative may be a project. A project can be broken into releases, which can be broken into iterations down to stories. So here what we can see is that our initiative had 3 projects, as we talked about a moment ago. It had an IT operations project, it had a development project, and it had a business project. A couple of very unique features that I want to bring to your attention right here are some things that we can do about helping to bridge the process and making the flow smoother as we move through the DevOps process. First, we have the idea of milestones. We all know what they are. They're very common in project management. We can define them here and we can track them. So when we have these, we can assign owners to them, we can assign due dates, we can track them in here and make sure that they're being met. Another thing we can do is have a specialized milestone that is a gate, if you will. Almost all product or project management processes have a gating system where at periodic times there are checkpoints to make sure that the project is healthy and doing what we said it would, and how we think it should progress. What we have here then is the ability to define those gates, and when those gates show up, we can set the criteria, we can set an ability for people to weigh in and give their opinion. Yes, we think things have been met, or no, we think something hasn't been met. And then we can also ultimately even have approval processes. So now a process that is typically fragmented between two or more information systems in most organizations has one clear record set so that anybody can go back at any time and see how did we arrive at this decision. We also have that activity stream that I showed you earlier so that collaboration can occur at this level. And so appropriate initiative discussions can happen here so they do not have to be done down in, say, the development collaboration in an area where those consumers are not interested in that information. Another area that I'd like to point out here is the project analysis area. Here you can see that, like typical project management products, we do have what you would typically expect. We have the tasks or the milestones area. We have it's showing on a Gantt chart. So the typical way that you would manage or visualize types of work you can see here. You can also see that the other projects build outs, that information is also available here, and so we can see the work at any level. Now, one of the things that I'll point out is as we move through the other parts of the project, you will see where we can zone in this work to only the project or the release or the iteration or the tasks that matter, or we can show it at a very high level across the entire initiative as we're doing here. Another variation of the way we can show work is in the form of the Kanban. A Kanban in our system can be heavily customized so that the story cards may be stories in this case, or the cards may be reflective of different parts of a project or iteration or release that are needing to be reassigned into other projects or initiatives. So any of these combinations are possible, and all the user needs to do is drag and drop into whatever locations that are appropriate. And as they do, the information under the covers is also updated for these respective stories so that it's only do this once, I move it across, and all the appropriate information is fed. The other nice thing about our collaboration capabilities is that when you're moving these stories around, the self-documentation feature I brought up a moment ago also self-documents these movements so that people who are following these stories, following these projects, following these iterations, have the ability to be proactively notified when something takes place that they may be interested in versus having to go and seek it out themselves. The last couple of things that I will show you here when we scroll back down is let's take a look and let's investigate a tiny bit into the couple of different ways that projects are handled between operations and development. Here we're going to look at an operations project, and specifically we're going to look at one of the releases. What the operations team has broken down is they've broken down the project of building out the environments to building out the test environment, building out the production environment, and being able to build out the developer sandbox area. So what we're going to do is we're going to take just a second and look at operations. Well, operations does not work in iterations. It does not work in stories, generally speaking. But what it does work in are tasks to be created or to be executed. So again, what we can do here is we can, within a release, we can define the tasks, we can assign them to owners, or we can have owners, we can assign them to people, and we can track what we're expecting their start dates to be. We can track all of those different elements, and just like we could in other areas, we could manage this work on a Gantt chart or Kanban board if need be. So This would suit the operations team very well, but it would be wholly inadequate for a development team because developers need a different way to approach the problem or in order to do some work. So we're going to look now at a project that's broken down in more detail, and that would be the development project. And here you can see the project, the release, the iteration, and the stories. And I want to focus on one story in particular, story number 11, and show you a couple of interesting things about the ITinvolve solution. As Matt stated earlier, that if you've got already tools that you're using, we want you to use them. So here in this case, we have a story that says support high capacity transactions. Well, our dev team in this scenario very much likes Jira, and they're very happy with it. So we have a link that links us back to the Jira project. So you can see we had the same name, we have the description, we pulled the key information from Jira and put it here in the story so that it is globally interesting and globally available. Team members that do not have access to Jira, that's fine. They don't need to have access to Jira. The developers can continue to work over here, and the key information is brought back and placed here. Now, where this gets really powerful is when we start talking about collaboration. One of the biggest issues we have is where we have stories that are happening in the dev cycle that have significant impact to operations, but they don't come in until late in the game, and then everybody's scrambling to try to make them work. So here we can see the developer, Max, actually saw, look, we have a performance barrier. We have to be able to hit a certain level of transactions, and we know we can only go so far with software. So here he reaches out to the operations team and says, hey, look, we may need some help here. And we can watch the collaboration that occurs between the developer and operations so that this is not a surprise to anybody. Now, the flip side to this is that operations could have been, we know this project is coming. We know they are in this iteration. We are watching the stories. And when the operations team member saw the story about high capacity transactions, he could have dug into it very easily and then initiated the conversation back to engineering. Either way, what we've still done is bridged an incredible gap that will save hours of time later on in the release process. So now we've looked at stories, we've looked at iterations, we've looked at requirements, we've looked at all the things that are necessary to help make the process of developing applications and getting them out much smoother and helping both the business, the development teams, and the operations teams understand what's at stake, what needs to be accomplished, and making sure they are all better aligned and optimized for success. So at this point right now, I'm going to turn it back over to Matt, and we'll discuss some other new features of Spring 14.
Thanks, Mike. What I really love about what you just showed was you showed how teams can leverage existing investments, get work done more efficiently, more accurately, and how the system self-documents as you go along so that people who are further down the chain or further up the chain have that information available to them and can react to that information and collaborate much more effectively with one another as it relates to their piece of the project that they're working on. Great job. So as Mike just said, we want to spend a little time as well talking about the other new offering that's part of Spring 14, and that's ITinvolve Drift Manager. What Drift Manager does is it helps you to visualize and identify drift and then to actually take action to be able to correct that drift across all the different tiers of the application stack where you may be defining your configurations. The net impact of this is it helps to improve service stability because your configurations are running in line with your expectations more frequently, but it also helps to improve deployment success. If we think about one of the other major challenges in DevOps is that as we move new application releases and supporting infrastructure through the promote to production landscape, sometimes those deployments are not successful. And more often than not, it's because configurations aren't what we were expecting. That slows things down. It means you might have less time for testing. It means you might have less time in staging. And it means you may have to put that application release into production faster, or you may even have issues being able to get it to correctly apply in production. Using ITinvolve Drift Manager helps you to address these challenges and further improve your overall agility and service stability. Additional objects that come with the ITinvolve Drift Manager product include the configuration element group and configuration element. For example, over here on the right-hand side, we see a screenshot representing a configuration element group, in this case for Tomcat infrastructure in our environment. And we see there's a wide range of configuration files, binary files, system-level attributes, as well as product version information that are all defined inside of this configuration element group. That configuration element group is then mapped to an application, in this case, the home loans application. And that allows us to then provide a dashboarding capability across all of our key business services and our environments so that we can see at a glance what's the status of the configuration of these environments. If it's green, then we know the actual configuration is what we expect it to be. If it's red, that means there's drift that's occurred, and then we can drill down in through the dashboard in order to be able to get additional information. Here on the next slide, what you'll see is you'll see some of that additional information displayed on the right-hand side. We've now clicked on the ecom application, and we can now see all those detailed configuration files and binary files that are necessary to configure the e-commerce application. And we can see very specifically there are two configuration files where there is drift occurring between what we expect the environment to look like and what the environment actually does. And in a moment, when Mike continues with the demonstration, we'll show you how you can drill even further into these areas in order to be able to really get to the heart of what the drift is exactly, and then be able to take actions to remediate that drift. So the first key benefit of Drift Manager is this ability to centralize and to visualize all of your configuration information. Script information, for example, automation information, those config files, binary files, etc. The second key benefit is the ability to then have those interactive dashboards to be able to really understand at a glance how are we doing in terms of managing our configurations for our key services across the various different environments, and then be able to drill into that view in order to understand more details on any potential drift that might be occurring, and then take action to generate what we call a drift incident, or to snooze the drift if the drift is expected. Let's say we're upgrading a piece of middleware, and the version of that middleware in production is one version, and the version that's in test is a newer version. Well, naturally, that is drift that we would expect because we haven't yet deployed the new piece of middleware into the production environment. So that's a drift that we might want to snooze and say this is drift that we know about, and we don't need to take an issue, take any action to resolve it at this time. And then finally, because these new objects in Drift Manager, the configuration element group and the individual configuration element objects are just like any other object in ITinvolve, you can collaborate on those objects with different teams that might be involved in managing the configuration files versus scripts, for example, as well as the fact that you can align those configuration element groups with the applications and business services, like I said, so that when you start to plan a new project, for example, or plan an infrastructure upgrade, those elements, those configuration elements, are actually going to be brought into the analysis. So your configuration information can actually be part of your risk assessment and your risk analysis, and we will automatically identify and engage the right individuals who are responsible for those configurations to provide their risk assessment associated with making any changes to those configurations or to those scripts. So that's a quick overview of the new Drift Manager application, and now I'll turn it back over to Mike to show you a live demonstration of the product.
Thank you, Matt. And in this part of the demonstration, we're going to start at looking at one of those configuration element groups. We've made it through, we talked about previously the challenges that go with getting development operations aligned in the beginning and throughout the development process. We are now getting to the point of where we have a production environment, we have the test environment, we have the development environment. We need to understand as best we can understand that how does this come together? When do we see what we see in test, what we think is there? We need to make sure that that is also the same files, the same expected behavior that we have in production, and vice versa. So here what we're looking at is one of those configuration groups, and we can see that it's looking at from our card services configuration for Tomcat. Well, let me take you in and show you something that Matt showed you in screenshots, but let me show it to you in the product as well. and that is right here when we start digging in and looking at and exploding this configuration group. Here what we have are the various pieces, the various elements that we look at so that we can trace these files. We can keep track of them. These are the configuration items or elements themselves. Here's the individual binary files, the jar files we want to keep track of. Here are the actual configuration files we want to track as well. But we can also see how this configuration element, as Matt pointed out, how it is deployed to this given server. We can see how it is configuring this application, how it configures this this piece of application software, which is the Tomcat server. While these are a great and very, very powerful view, and we could go in and we could dig into these even in greater detail, and perhaps we will in a future webinar, the problem is this kind of information can be very difficult to consume. So we need to come up with a way that helps make consuming it as easy as possible. What we have is the drift management dashboard. And what the dashboard enables us to do is define what are our environments and what are the applications that go with it. And so what we're going to show you here is here we can see here are our different environments, our development, our production, our testing, our disaster recovery. And here you can see the green lights, red lights, wherever we have issues where drift may have occurred. And we can drill into these items like I'm going to do here. And as I drill into them, what we'll then see is what I was showing you a moment ago, where here are the jar files I showed you in the previous screen. We can see that what we say is supposed to be there is in fact there. We can also see the same thing that's happening here as well. And it's not until we start getting down into what we think product versions are that we see our issue. And here what we can do is simply click on that and drill into it to get more information. And when we drill in, what we see are 2 areas of concern, and all the rest of the areas, 4 of the 6 are fine. Well, if we want to see and really understand the difference, all we have to do is click on the diff, and what will happen when we do is we will get a screen that actually shows us not only what the original value is, what we say it's supposed to be, but we can also see what is actually happening in the environment. And one of the key pieces of this is understanding, okay, well, how relevant is this? How accurate is it? How timely is it? And what we can look at here is we can see our file sizes, we can see our line counts, we can even see the last scan. When did the last scan take place? When was the last modified date? So we can actually clearly have an accurate record of how timely is this information? Is this something we need to be concerned about? In addition, something that Matt pointed out that I want to actually show you in the product is where if we looked at this and said, you know what, this is expected, this is what should be, then all we would have to do is highlight this, come right here to our actions and say snooze it. So in this situation, let's say we're getting ready to update we're in the process of updating, and we know that for the next day there is going to be a drift, and we're okay with that. We can simply do the snooze as I've just done here, and now you notice that it's gone to yellow, and that tells people, yes, there is a drift, but it is something we know about and we are okay with it. If we get done and we get everything updated, then we can cancel the snooze, or we can let the snooze expire, and if the problem still exists, then it will show red again, and if the problem has remediated itself, then it will turn to green. Another option that Matt alluded to here that I want to call out is where if we go right here, we can say, you know what, this is a big issue. This is a problem. Let's create the drift incident. And upon hitting this button, what will happen is it will actually take us out and let us initiate incidents. And if we are the IT service management of record, it will open up an incident in our system. Or if the organization is using a different tool, then it will send the information to that other tool to be used. Other options you can do here is you can actually also select 2 items and then choose to compare them if you want, and actually go and do the comparative analysis that we've done that we previously talked about a moment ago. So this gives you a bit of an understanding of what's in the new the new drift management tool, and we're very excited to offer it and bring it to our customers. And so, with that, I'll turn it back over to Matt.
Hey, Mike, actually, I have a question for you. I imagine the
Please.
audience is probably wondering where does this data come from and how real time or near real time is it?
That is a wonderful question. I'm glad you asked that, Matt. For our listeners, our information can be as real time as you want it to be. Typically, what we find with customers that we consult with is typically they want to do the drift analysis on a daily basis. But you know what? You may have applications, you may have environments that need to be more than that, and that's fine. All we have to do is know where the files are that we're supposed to evaluate and where the files are that are the masters or the gold copies. Knowing those two, then it's a scheduling exercise that collects that information and uploads it into the ITinvolve solution. Matt, now that I think about it, another area that we need to talk about is the idea of tokenization, because one of the biggest issues you have in drift management products is where it's sitting there looking at, like, for example, an IP address in two different environments, and it will call that a drift when in fact it's not. So one of the things the ITinvolve solution enables you to do are define areas that we know that should be different, like IP addresses, computer names between environments, things along those lines, and we can tokenize those so that they are not evaluated as part of the drift evaluation. We can also tokenize out personally identifiable information, as well as also user ID and passwords if we need to as well, so that people who are looking at the comparisons only see the information that's really relevant that they need to look at. But in terms of what you asked, Matt, we have an ability to be as granular or as broad as the organization, the application, and or the environment warrant.
Great, Mike. Yeah, because I wanted to make sure the audience knew that the IT Involved solution doesn't require an agent. There's not another agent that you have to deploy in your environment. We leverage the data that you already have, the Gold Master configuration files that you've already defined, as well as your discovery data from discovery tools you may already have, CMDB if you have a CMDB in place, without requiring you to have to put in place another agent. Thanks for that,
Absolutely.
Mike. Great. So that gives you a good overview of the new offerings being released with Spring 14. Just want to hit a couple more points here before we wrap things up. So we've already gotten some very nice feedback on this new release. Matt Estes is one of our customers. He works for taxaudit.com. They're the largest provider of tax related audit defense services. They are an existing customer of the core ITinvolve offering, as well as the service manager offering, specifically around change management and change impact analysis. And so Matt provided us a nice quote here that talks about the value they're getting from ITinvolve today in terms of having a much better understanding of their environment and being able to dramatically reduce unexpected issues when making changes, and how he's looking forward to taking advantage of the new capabilities in Drift Manager as well as Agility Manager to be able to improve the execution around projects and better manage configuration drift. And then on the right-hand side, we see a quote from Kevin Baer. Kevin's a thought leader in the DevOps space. He's a co-author of the groundbreaking book about IT transformation called The Phoenix Project, and he's also the chief science officer of Praxis Flow. What Kevin said was that the Spring 14 release is a refreshing new approach that helps IT leaders align their resources behind a unified mission and drive new levels of collaboration. He said it's not only a transformational solution, but it can be implemented in an iterative fashion to help you improve your agility while also ensuring operational stability and release quality at the same time. So thanks to Kevin for providing that feedback to us as a top leader in the DevOps community. A couple of other things I wanted to highlight here for you before we wrap up. What you've probably gotten the impression of by now, certainly if this is your first exposure to ITinvolve listening to this webinar, is that ITinvolve is unique. There is nobody out there that brings together a system of knowledge and analysis with a system of collaboration specifically designed for IT departments and specifically designed to improve the agility of IT organizations. There's a lot of great products that are shown here on this slide, and a lot of those are great data sources for ITinvolve to be able to use. But none of these products has that unique combination of knowledge, analysis, and collaboration in one application that helps you to unify work, better understand your environment, and make smarter decisions. And so the final thought I want to leave you with is there's a wide range of different problems that ITinvolve can help to solve. We've highlighted some today, talking more about DevOps and enabling greater agility. We also talked about configuration drift. But other areas that we can help you with include application service dependency mapping, change impact analysis, migrating to or from the cloud, for example, taking legacy infrastructure, moving it out to the cloud, or developing in the cloud and then being able to successfully migrate that back in-house for deployment. We help you manage regulatory compliance in terms of mapping policies to your infrastructure and giving your teams new levels of awareness and understanding of potential policy impacts related to changes or actions they might be taking. So this gives you a quick overview of the wide variety of problems that ITinvolve helps you to solve. So finally, Mike and I would like to thank you for tuning in and listening to the webinar today. If you have questions, please feel free to email them to info@ITinvolve, and we would encourage you to follow us on Twitter with the handle @ITinvolve. Thanks for listening today, and we look forward to engaging with you to help you address your needs and becoming a more agile organization. Thank you.